potent advice, and inspiration from real self-made millionaires. Welcome to The Eventual Millionaire with your host, Jaime Masters.
Welcome to Eventual Millionaire. I'm Jaime Masters, and today on the show, I've been waiting to have Sam Carpenter. Now, he is one of the only people that I sought after. We actually have a wait list for people on the show, and I was like, is there any way? I asked friends if they knew him. It took me a while, and he finally said yes. He wrote the book, Work the System. I highly recommend everybody reading it. He also has an amazing business with 50 employees. Also, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Well, sure, Jaime, I'm flattered, as I told you before.
Seriously. Thank you for saying yes, because I don't take no's very well. No, I would have bombarded you until you said yes. So I'm so glad you came. I think your work is extremely important. And that's one of the reasons why I have you on, because systems are critical for business owners. And like we were talking about before, quite unsexy. And so what's tough is that they get in this rat race of chicken with their head cut off running around. And I feel like there haven't been very many resources that have solved the problem. They have the E-Myth from a long time ago too. And now I recommend your book because it talks a little bit more about the how and the little nitty gritty of what we need. So can you just give a blanket overview of the book so everyone can take a listen?
Yeah, there it is. You can download it for free at my website, audio or video, audio or text, I should say. So yeah, the basic premise of the book, which was built on 50 years of failure in my life, was that in the middle of the night one night, I got a clue as to what I was doing wrong with my business. I was working 80 to 100 hours a week. My family life had fallen apart. My health was really bad. And I was on the verge of missing a payroll, make a long story short. And the story is in the book. I was lying in bed late one night and I lost all hope. I had had the business for 15 years. I was going to lose it all. I was going to be this single 50-year-old guy with nothing. And I just gave up and thought, well, at least I don't have to deal with trying to put the money together for yet another payroll. I had about 12 people is all. And what happened was I got a clue, and it was either a dream or it was a vision or something, that my life was made up of systems, processes. And so it's more than just it is a different way of looking at things. It's not some clever little esoteric psychological ploy to do in your own head. It's actually, I say, you go a layer deeper in reality and see reality a little deeper. And here's the reality, is that our lives are a collection of separate systems. And so late that night, I laid in bed and I realized, and this vision I had was of a table and little incremental pieces on that table, separate pieces, like separate pieces of a machine. And what I realized was one of them was, how do we answer the phone? Another one was, how do we make payroll? Another one is, how do we take care of a customer complaint? I have a call center. We take a lot of calls in and deliver messages. How do we, well, anyway, all these pieces were separate. I realized it wasn't what I call a big swirling mass of sights, sounds, and events, which is how almost everybody goes through life. Oh, I wish my struggling business, the hand of God, would come down and rescue me, or I just need another loan, or I need to hire this person as a manager who will come in and solve all my problems. No, that's looking at life as a confused mess, and life is not a confused mess. What life is a collection of systems. So what happened was the next day I went down to the office, and I'll cut this short. Again, everything's in here, and you can download it for free at workthesystem.com. But I went down to work, and I took my two managers, and I said, what is the biggest problem we have here? Because we're going to go about this a different way. You know we're going to miss payroll in a week, but I think I got an idea. I'll find the money, and I did. We made the payroll. But what is the biggest problem? Well, the biggest problem was this mundane little thing that was taking up everybody's time. And so we isolated that as a separate element of the business and went after it. And through process and documentation and all three of our heads put together, found out there was a 53-step process to solve this problem forever. And it turned out these first 15 years, and this was in about 1999. That was before you were born, Jaime.
Thank you.
So we put our heads together. It took about 8 hours. We put a 53-step process together to solve this particular problem, which I won't go into what the problem is here because we're limited for time. But I had been spending 2 hours a week for 15 years handling this particular process that we had to do. And it had to do with getting the money from the mail into the accounting system and then to the bank. 2 hours a week. And each of my two managers were spending 2 hours a week. Whoever could do it got it done. Well, we implemented this written procedure of 53 steps. I immediately gave it to a third person, and I have never done it before, never done it since. And it's something like, if you put 2 hours a week together for 18 years or whatever it's been now, it's something like a year and a half of 40-hour work weeks that I haven't had to do. And needless to say, we isolated every problem we had in the business, even if it wasn't what we perceived as a problem. We isolated it, we documented it, and then I moved out of it. Now, I would be embarrassed to tell you how much money I make, and I spend maybe 10 minutes a week. It was 2 hours in the book. It talked about 2 hours a couple of printings ago. Then it went to 1 hour, and now this next printing, I think we changed it. I spend about 10 hours a week, and it's a 35% profit margin. It's the most successful business in its industry in the country, and I don't spend any time doing it. So I've got what everybody wants, all your listeners, all your viewers.
They're bowing right now. They're like, please teach me your ways.
They want two things, Jamie. They want lots of money, and they want lots of time to spend that money. And I'm sorry, I'm being a little mercenary. Yeah, we want to help our fellow man and everything. But in having a successful business, you do that. So I've got actually 60 people in here now, and I've got a business in Europe, and I've got a nonprofit in Asia. But I'm helping a lot of people by being successful. And that's the beautiful part about capitalism. All you people out there that don't believe in making a profit, just stop listening now. Because when you make a profit, you help people, you buy stuff. So anyway, that's what happened was I realized, and the mindset difference happens in the snap of a finger, and that is to see your life as a collection of systems. And I'm looking out on the street here. I'm in Bend, Oregon, at one of my offices, and I'm looking down at the cars going by, and a lady's walking down to a store over there. All these are separate processes. Every car that goes by is a collection of separate systems and processes. The lady who's walking across the street, I could turn this around and show you, but she's a whole entity into herself, and she has kidneys, she has a heart, she has lungs. They're all separate. And maybe at the end of this, Jamie, I can explain to people how to see that separateness, because the key to freedom is to see the world the way it really is. And I'm sorry, it's a collection of separate processes. It isn't this big mass of confusion. And a lot of your people who are watching right now is, how do I get out of this? I'm working 80 hours a week. I'm working 60. My family life is a nightmare. Pay attention, because it's a very, very simple thing. And the cool thing is this new vision, this what I call systems mindset. This is a book from 2 years ago, The Systems Mindset. It's kind of a.
Someone said I look like her. So my friend Ryan Moran posted, and I guess you were out completely. And someone was like, "That looks like you, Jamie." I'm like, "That's hilarious."
Well, she's a 15-year-old Bosnian girl who's a model in Canada right now. Wow. I paid $500 for her image to a Bosnian photographer who specializes in redheads.
Really? I separately, we're gonna have to ask about that. Okay, I wonder. Like, it's a really cool cover.
So anyway, the mindset is that you see the world, rather than a confused mass, as a very, very organized and sensible collection, starting with your body or looking at your car or your family. Everything is in systems, compose everything. And so if you can get that mindset, you'll never lose it. I never lost it since that night. It's been at the front of my head all this time, and I went from working 80 to 100 hours a week to what I just described to you. And so anyway, that's kind of a nutshell view of it. And the first third of Work the System, the book Work the System, is getting the mindset. But it's a simple thing. And it'll either happen in a flash, or it might take a couple of weeks. Whenever it does set in, it is instant. It could happen in the next 10 minutes during this interview, or it could happen in 3 weeks after you download my book and read about it and think about it. And then one night, bam, it comes, and it never goes away. And it is the secret for me of becoming wealthy and free.
I love this. Okay, so let's dive into some of those pieces because that's the thing. Business owners are making the same decision over and over and over again and feeling like it's get thrown at their face. And instead of, stopping the tennis balls from getting thrown at them, they're trying to catch them, right? They're like, and then they're going to die. And so
that's exactly right. You fend it all off your whole life and then you die. Well, what about, some of those people that are fending out the balls are wealthy enough, but they don't have any time to enjoy the money. And that's what I've discovered here in understanding reality a little better, is that a layer deeper is that you can get what you want in time and money if you face reality for what it is. And the reality is our lives are collections of systems. That's the reality of it, which most people don't get, which puts you at a distinct competitive advantage in your industry or whatever you're doing.
Do you think that business owners in general, because a lot of business owners, especially a lot of the people that I've interviewed, kind of have this ADD idea, like sort of visualizing kind of thing, but aren't like the detailed systems people typically? They're like, I just want to tell people what to do and I want them to do it, right? How come they don't get it? And there's a very bad translation between a lot of those things. So do you think that the people that are typically business owners can get to that switching on mindset hard? Like, is it easier for them because once they understand it, they go there? Or is it a problem of who they are, right? Because they avoid systems typically.
Well, we could talk about the general dysfunction of individuals, and that is one of the general dysfunctions, is they don't understand that life is a collection of systems. And when you get it, and I always use the term quote unquote, get it, when you get it, you will automatically go to do what you need to do. And this is totally mundane and boring. It's what I call boring but true. In your business, you need to do documentation and processes, because you can't tell somebody, Yvette, my HR person, hey, Yvette, she's in the next office. I could tell her what to do, but she'd get 10% of it because she's thinking about what she's going to do next Thursday when she goes on vacation or whatever. And so you have to write things down, and you get your people to write the processes and the systems down. Now, this is key, and our viewers will find this very interesting. On my management staff, and I have about 7 managers here, and we have about 6,000 square feet here in the building, on the second floor of this building we have. They don't do the work. The work they do is working on systems. So there's always a system that can be improved. And every time we have an error somewhere, something didn't go just right, we go back and tweak a system. Everything is systemized and processed, and it's on paper. Okay, it's on a hard drive, all right? People don't walk around reading, step 13, and, everything is written down, and they spend 8 hours a day working the systems and improving the systems. Other people do the work. Now, I can go into the back half of my building here, and there's TSRs, telephone service representatives, who answer the calls, who are also working the systems too. But my managers work the processes. All they do is creative stuff all day long. The dream of any entrepreneur would be, but you got to write it down. And if there's listeners out there who get the mindset and don't want to write it down, they will be very rare, because once you get this systems mindset, you understand the importance of writing things down. And all of a sudden, something that seems mundane and boring, and I'll get to it next week if I can, becomes mandatory. And if I go back to my little story where I spent 8 hours with my staff putting together this first 53-step process, and no kidding, it was 1, this, 2, this, 3, this, open the envelopes, take the check out. I mean, it was totally boring and mundane, but it wasn't a systematic process, right? They all understand that that's the secret of our success, is the willingness to sit down and create a process, and then understanding that process will never be complete. It's always going to be improved day by day by day. And I could take this computer and turn it around and introduce you to everybody in my office right now, and they're all working on processes. That's the secret. Entrepreneurs out there, if you are doing the work, you're never going to break free. You can't be doing the work unless you're a novelist and all that. But if you're running a regular business, bricks and mortar, or online, if you're doing all the work and you think that's a heroic gesture and that's going to win you freedom someday, you're wrong. And you can talk to Bill Gates. You could go back in time and talk to Steve Jobs. You could talk to Richard Branson. You could talk to Oprah Winfrey. I don't care. None of those people graduated college, by the way. And I could list you Ray Kroc with McDonald's. They will all tell you, and they get it inherently, the systems mindset, that other people have to do the work, and it's your job to lay that work out for them so they can do it. But if you're doing the work and you think you're going to get free by working 60 hours a week, you're wrong. It's never going to happen. What you said earlier, Jamie, was you work all your life and the hard balls are coming in and then you die. That's your life. You've got to be able to write things down and work with a staff who also gets the systems mindset. And I have people who work for me for almost 30 years here, my management staff, 15, 20 years, and they got the systems mindset after they read my book and understood the validity of it, and they're happy to work on systems all day. It is the most creative thing because, as you mentioned again at the beginning, you talked about kind of inferred people do the same things over and over and over. If you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, you're not going to get anywhere. You're like I don't mean to diminish people who sell cars in dealerships, but it's one sales process after another. And if you miss a day, you don't sell your 2 cars that day, your income suffers, and that's your life. You really need to own the dealership, okay, or start your own dealership and have other people doing that. And that just came to me as a good analogy, and I think it is. Anyway, sorry.
So no, I love it. So what if you are the owner, you're wearing 17 different hats in the business, especially if they're, mid 6 figures and they don't have that big of a team? How do we prioritize this stuff too? Because they most likely, many of the people listening know how important they are and documentation. And they're like, writing out 53 steps will take a very long period of time. Getting my team to implement it will take a very long period, right? They have all these things that come up. So what do you have for advice for them?
Well, let's go backwards in your question. So I spent 8 hours back in 1999 creating a system that has now saved me a year and a half of 40-hour work weeks personally.
Yes.
So you got to get over this thing. I don't have time. You have to make time. Now, once they start in on this, it will be no problem. What happened was, if you think about it, back in 1999, I saved 2 hours a week immediately. The next week I saved 2 hours. The next week after that I spent. You will get it, and you have to get the mindset that you're dealing with separate systems. You will instantly start saving time, and you will instantly want to spend even more time doing what I'm talking about, to the point where you have a crew of, I guess, 7 or 8 managers here now, that they will do nothing but work on systems because that's what works. That's why we've got a 35% profit margin here. You know what the average profit margin in a telephone service is?
They're not good. What are they?
3%. 3%. And so nobody knows what we do here. I wrote a book about it. I mean, this is the book for any answering service owner.
I know. Why? That's exactly what I was going to say. They all need to listen to this interview. My goodness.
It's crazy, but people have to get the mindset. And see, the problem is most answering service owners work 80 to 100 hours a week. It's a lot of times it's a family business. They don't have time to sit down, take a deep breath, and understand that they have to document and they have to be able to delegate. And this goes back to the core of your question. So our mantra is this: automate, delegate, delete. Automate, delegate, delete. Automation would be if a computer can do it, and we're constantly working on new software platforms here.
Who are you? Oh, I want to ask about that after. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You'd be amazed. Automate, delegate, have somebody else do it. And so you have to give them the platform to work from, the processes and systems. And a lot of times, if you got somebody working for you now, you say, look at Frank. There's no more Franks, are there? But look at John. Sit down and write down what you do. 1, 2, 3. What do you mean, write down what I do? When you come in the door, I want you to write down what you do. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is going to go somewhere. Trust me. And then you get them involved in working procedures. They get real excited about it. And so that's the second thing, is delegate. And then delete is our favorite. That's where we take a process and just get rid of it altogether because it didn't amount to anything. For instance, we used to save on paper every conversation we had with every client. I'm sorry, we've got 1,500 clients, and they're all different. And so storage was building and building and building. And finally one day, well, this was back in 1999, we had 400 accounts then. I said to my manager, have you ever gone back to our files to double check what we covered with a client? Well, actually, no, never. In 15 years, we've never gone back to verify. Well, you said this on this date, never happened. I said, it stops. Take everything you've got and throw it in the trash. And it was huge. It was huge trash. We haven't done it since. So delegating is very, very important to what we do.
Okay, so you just went down. Yeah. Hi.
That's Diana.
Hi.
That's Diana, my wife.
Oh, your wife. Oh, how lovely.
She's from Kentucky. Talk Southern?
Talk Southern.
I'm from Kentucky.
You guys are awesome. No, I love this.
highly unusual for a podcast.
I love that.
So anyway, that's what you do. The resistance will go away once they get the systems mindset.
Okay. So so there's, in a second, I'm going to talk about software, and I'm a super geek. Okay. But before we get into that, how did you know that it was that 2-hour process? Because do they write all their systems down and then rank them? Or are you like, what is the biggest pain that I have? Like because I want people to be able to go, if I'm starting this week, besides getting the book, how do I make it manageable? Because it does feel like so big.
Yeah, I didn't really answer fully your question before, so I'm glad that you followed up. You take the biggest problem first.
Good.
And this had to do with losing deposits that went to the bank. And I won't go into the details, but somebody lost. It was $3,000 was a lot of money in those days, and it went under the seat of her car. She was late picking up her kid at daycare. The deposit was never made, and $3,000 was a lot of money back then. And so it's a lot of money now, but back then it was even more money. So we attacked the biggest problem first. And that was the biggest problem. We were actually not getting money in the bank properly to make the next payroll. So that was the biggest. The next one had nothing to do with it. It had to do with how the TSRs answered the phones. And the next one had nothing to do with that. So you rank your problems. You sit down with your managers. What is your biggest problem? Well, what do you mean? What do you mean? What is your biggest problem? Well, I don't know what you mean. And you explain to them, I want to know what's taking the most time and frustrating you the most. Oh, it's this over here. Or it's this employee over here. And maybe that employee, maybe the problem with the employee is that employee needs to go away. Well, that's a solution to a lot of problems sometimes. Or it's we don't have a protocol for doing this, or we don't have a protocol for doing that. What is your biggest problem that you'd like to go away forever? Let's work on that first. And then you got the 80-20 rule going for you. So you get 20 of these nightmare processes out of the way. All of a sudden, 80% of your life is much, much improved. That's the simple thing. Every business is different. So what you'd say as the owner of the business, you'd go to your managers and say, what is costing us the most trouble here? And that's what you work on first. And the second one won't have anything to do with it. I guarantee it'll be something else over here. And it might be that it's a family business and you're talking to the husband and you say, look, what's your biggest problem? Well, my sister-in-law. Well, then she needs to go.
I've heard that one before. Yep.
My brother would have a problem with that. Well, deal with it, because if that's your biggest problem, you need to take care of it. And then you slowly get rid of all the problems, systematic problems that are in your business, and pretty soon you're making good profit and you got a lot of time.
I love this. And a lot of times it can be small things. Like I've worked with people on communications and they're like, I get texts all the time. Well, why are you allowing people to text you in the middle of the night? Stop that, right?
I know. I'm against that. Text me if it's an urgency.
Yes,
okay?
yes. And what is it? What defines an urgency, please? Let's write that down. A password problem ain't an urgency. Let's just say that. Yeah. So, and you can get in the nitty gritty, but it's amazing what relief and reminder of all the people that are listening right now. There is relief coming because of this. So let's talk about the software side, because I come from that world, and sometimes it is a wonderful thing. I want to be a futurist when I grow up, right? So I care so much about the future of technology and AI and all that fun stuff. And in the current capacity, all these new softwares are causing people more problems because they dabble, I feel like, because they don't know if it's the right thing. They don't know what to do. What's your stance on technology? And do you have any softwares that you recommend or that work well, or what do you guys do?
You know what we do? We have a proprietary system here.
I knew you were going to say that. Okay.
Well,
darn.
for how we answer the phones, but I'm talking to you on an Apple. Okay, a Mac Pro. Our phones are AT&T. I don't want any trouble. I figure a phone, there's a billion of these phones out there. If there's any software problem, it will be fixed immediately. I don't want to dabble. I'm sorry, Droid users. I don't want to dabble with your various hardware problems. I don't want to fool with that. I want a phone that works. So we switched from all Droids over to that, and we went from PCs to Apples. Sorry, PC people, but that's what we did. It's been the best move ever. And
I've
Diana,
done that too. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Diana, did I introduce you properly to Jamie?
That's okay. Hi, Jamie.
Yeah.
How are you?
Hi, nice to meet you from Kentucky.
Here quietly.
She's trying to say we're going to lunch. Anyway, I apologize for not properly introducing you before. So what we do is we standardize everything. And we use Google. We cloud everything's on the cloud. Okay. We go standard because we don't have time to reinvent the wheel. So we find the very best, or close to the very best, without gilding the lily, so to speak. And then we deal with that. And so everything we have is standard. The Apple. And we don't have any real esoteric software. The esoteric software we've written ourselves for our sales department, for our operations, and we don't fool with off the shelf because it never works for us. We always wish it would do this.
No, I'm very excited over this because everybody's going crazy on Process Street and Sweet Process and what we need for this and pulling new things in, and it's supposed to help us. Do you just use Google Docs for your documents? Like what are you guys using?
We do, honest.
Really? So no videos, or do you embed videos in your Google? Because that's the other piece.
Yeah, we occasionally do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got a guy who writes code. He's full time. He's in Romania. He's a wonderful friend. I've been there many times. And a part of our other software team is in Italy. And part of our team is here. These guys are world-class alien intelligence, and they write up the special software. But let me tell you how I run my day. Would you like to know how the guy?
Love it.
You know what my task list is? I love talking about this because people don't believe me. My task list is this. So I've got Gmail. If I have a task to do, I either put it on the calendar, or more than likely, I send myself a message that says, do this. So everything's in my inbox. My tasks are there. My correspondence, everything's in my inbox. It's the ultimate simplicity. Because one of the other important things about the systems mindset is, and there's this acronym called POS. Well, that's
yep.
It's also, it was kind of hijacked. The original acronym is point of sale. Mm-hmm. So we try to take care of everything as it comes across the threshold. We're not constantly interrupted, but in that day, we try to take care of things. And I could show you my inbox right now, and I have about 10 things in it, and that includes my tasks. So we knock things off as they come in. So what is the ultimate simplicity for Sam to keep track of things? It's in my inbox. And whether I'm looking at my phone or my PC, it's in my inbox. And you can do Process Street, and we fooled around with coming up with a software, and we have a software, and you can find it, and you can use it if you want. But my ultimate go-to is my inbox. And wherever I am, whatever platform I'm on, I go to my inbox and everything is there. I don't have a task list over here because, when you have a task list over here and an inbox over here, you tend to forget your task list.
Yes.
And suddenly what was critical should have happened 2 days ago didn't happen at all. And so everything is looking at you right now. It's the ultimate simplicity.
I was joking with one of my friends about, because he does the same thing, and he's about 10 years older than me, and I was like, that is hilarious. So that is hilarious that you just said that. I will have to show him this interview, so thank you. What about the people that don't have the luxury at the moment to only have one? Because I have probably now, I get to Inbox Zero every single week, but I can't use it for task management software. Yeah, so for the people either that work for you or the people that are at six figures and still have too many hats, what can we do to pull up? Because a lot of times, and I came from the software world, proprietary software is expensive, right? Yeah. And I know this isn't your total wheelhouse, but I find a lot of people get stuck on the system side because they're like, I don't know where to put it on the tactical little nitty gritty. And it really shouldn't be that complicated, but they make it even more complicated than it needs to be.
Well, you got to spend your time on the most important thing. And now we get into, books, 7 Habits of And you get into the real philosophical stuff, but it is really true. You have to isolate what's most important. And spending 2 hours over here and getting some little software thing just right when you're missing a sale over here is ludicrous. It's insane, actually. Yep. And so what we do is we try to eliminate any of these little nuanced, bothersome details that are getting in front of the most important thing. And the most important thing is to create processes that are either automated or delegated. And the very best thing is to delete processes. And I think that's what we're talking about now, is deleting the things that don't add up to anything or just wasting your time. Because all you got, and I tell my people here, my people are very highly paid here. I tell them all I got is your time. Don't be spending it on stuff that doesn't matter. Well, it matters a little bit. No, it doesn't matter enough. It has to matter a lot, or just let it go. And then you get into the delete thing. So what I'd say to our viewers is, if you're just bogged down with all these details out there, ask if they can be automated, delegated, or deleted. And I'm telling you, delete will come in a lot, especially at the beginning of this process, as you shed these things that don't matter. And of course, we're talking to all kinds of business owners, online, bricks and mortar. I don't know what your specific system is or what your specific situation is, but I'll tell you what I do know for sure. You're probably spending a lot of time on things that don't matter.
Times a million. You've deleted so many things that you just have a Gmail inbox. So again, we bow down to you on that one too, right? Because when you do get better, when you are spending this much time on it, that's when it starts to decrease, and you don't have to have a bazillion different pieces to manage.
And what happens is you start the process and you get the systems mindset. You start and said, oh my God, I just saved 2 hours a week, for instance. Well, how else can I save another 2 hours? What's your next biggest problem that's taking up all your time? Go there and fix that. And you got to document it. I'm sorry. And you may have to put some other heads on it too. But ultimately where you'll get to is you work with your managers. Let's take a 30-person company and there's 5 managers. You go to your managers and you get them to write the documentation. Yep. You as the owner should not write the documentation because nobody will listen to you. But if you get your people to write the documentation, they're bought into it. Can I give you a quick story? Oh, yeah. So we had a job up in Canada, and it was in a warehouse, and these guys had a way to run the forklift and get all their stuff arranged. They'd take it was a fertilizer company. They'd take the fertilizer from one side of the huge warehouse to the other. And there were certain safety precautions you have to take, of course. But there was a protocol of doing it in a safe and efficient way. And they all bought into it. There was about 8 guys, and the head guy wrote the procedure. 1, 2, 3, we're going to do it like this. So they hired this new guy who'd been in warehousing for a long, long time, and he came in and he looked at it. He said, "No, I'm going to do it my way." And you know what they said to him? "No, you're not. You're going to do it this way." And he said, "Well," and they said, "That's your job description. However, we know that you're experienced, so take this written procedure for running this forklift," and there were 40 some steps in it, "and punch holes in it." And this term "punch holes in it" is great. "Take this procedure and help us make it better." And you know what? He came back and he said, steps 6 and 7 need to be, you need a step 8 and 9 in between there, and that'll make it better. And you know what? He was correct. And guess what? He was bought into it. So the next guy that comes in with an idea, he says, "No, this is the process that we all put together. We all know it works. It's had input from all of us. Let's do it this way. But if you can punch holes in it, do so." And then that person buys into it. But if you go top down military, you know why the military works? Because if you don't follow instructions, you go to jail. Or you're shot. And that doesn't work in private enterprise. You have to get your people to buy into what you're doing. And the way to do that is to have them do all the work. So you as the leader are reviewing processes, make sure they're doing it right, but don't bother writing. We had a guy in California with an accounting company. No, it was an appraisal company. And he spent a year writing processes. Down, and there were binders up the wall, binder, all handwritten by him. I mean, typed in. We got down there, and he said, "It's just not working. It's just not working." And we said, "Oh, how many times do your people use that?" He said, "They never used it."
That was my other thing. Yes.
Oh
okay.
My God. Yeah. Oh my God. what an incredible, I would want to put a bullet in my head if I were him. And so what he got was finally that he needs his people to write these.
Yeah.
And there was some salvage he was able to do with what he had written, but you can't write them yourself. And that's the beautiful part of it, is if you don't take this burden onto yourself, you just save some more time.
Yes.
But your people will never buy into it unless they help create it.
Do you think, because this is a big question of mine, I know this documentation and SOPs are sort of the secret sauce of a lot of businesses anyway, right? Do you think that they'll ever be open source or crowdsourced? Because you only have the people in your employee subset right now, but what about all the, like I've been collecting SOPs from millionaires and I'm going, these are amazing, especially for the different types of business. You can use more data to be able to try and make processes better. Do you think that'll ever happen?
Yeah, and we have chat lines. I mean, we belong to a trade group here, and they trade software back and forth. Every business is so different. And my type of business is run completely different by the next guy who's got my type of business. And so it really needs to be mostly internal. But look, when I started talking to you, Jamie, I talked about, the hand of God, this manager coming in. I should have added, this special new software will solve all my problems. Right. It's not going to. It really has to come with simplicity and internal for most companies. And you can be searching and searching and searching. Meanwhile, you could be working with your people to refine your processes to where you don't have problems anymore. We don't have problems here. We very, very rarely have a problem. For instance, we've got drug testing we do here. Some of our viewers will disagree that that's okay or not, but we had a guy about a month ago who failed the drug test, and we handle emergencies, medical emergencies here. So we can't have somebody smoked in coming in and answering calls. He was fired the first time. So the clever part of our drug policy is that you don't get a second chance. And guess what? We very rarely let anybody go. It's really hard to find people anymore that don't have some kind of drug in their system, but it works for us because our people have almost flawless performance in here. One of the other systems along these lines that we have is a bonus program where they can earn up to 35% bonus of their previous month's wage by doing a really, really good job on every single message. And it goes down to 25% and 15%. This is where people need to be spending their time refining the systems within their business, not looking for this magical software out there to come and solve all your problems. It never will happen. You have to look at your own processes and systems and refine them to perfection.
So I know we have to start wrapping up in a little bit too, but so yes, I agree that business owners need grit on systems specifically. It's easy when we have a reward of cash, but the grit of not getting hit by tennis balls is really important too. But like in the example of the bonus, a lot of business owners don't know what they don't know. So they'll sit and they'll be like, okay, this process is great, but how do I fix it? So it's not just staying in the bubble and trying to fix the process within this. How do you solve the problem better outside? Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, I do. I think I know what you're asking. So this 53-step process I talked about at the beginning of our discussion here, when we implemented it, we knew there was going to be a lot of changes in it, especially in the first few weeks. Mm-hmm. But you actually take the process, you put it on paper, you hand it to the person, you say, this is the best we could come up with, run through the process, and especially if something doesn't make sense, write it down, and then we'll interview you afterwards. And that 53-step process went down and then went up. I think it's 30-some steps now, but it is never finished. And remember, we talked about this at the beginning. Your processes are never done. They're all, and if you're using them every day, and you need to use them every day, they get better and better and better and better and better. Every day that goes by, it's unlike a car where every day goes by, it gets a little more used, a little more, less new, a little more toward the used car. These processes get better and better over time. Their evolution is to get better, simpler.
If they update them. Yes, exactly. If they don't, they collect dust. No. How do you get your people to use, because that's the other thing. I'll go into a business and we'll see like lots of documentation, which is great, except it was from last year. Or it was, and getting the employees to actually go through a 27-page Google Doc is like the bane of people's existence. They're like, right? Or if they even do video or trainings or something, they go based on that one. And if it gets updated 3 days later, or however often you guys update them, there's so many nuances.
You have to do a point of sale. You've got to make your procedures instantly available so somebody can go in and tweak it if it needs to be changed. That has to be kept up. Yeah. You have to live your systems and processes. So people in here, like I said before, they're not walking around with a piece of paper seeing what to do next, but they do know when a process has changed where to go to fix it because they know the process is.
Well, how do we get especially for you, you've been in this for a really long time. So imagine people just start, and I know you work with companies that are like this, when you're just starting to get the employees on board of the beginning parts of the system, I totally get getting their buy-in, right? But then as we start getting massive amounts of documentation and this one person and this one job has 17,000 manuals, I have a lot of clients that are like, and then they're like this, please don't make me go through them when I know them.
You never want to go to that. You never want to have 17 manuals. Everybody's got their processes and their systems on a hard drive, and we keep them as simple as we possibly can. That's what we do. And everybody, they need to be in a central place where anybody can find them. And one of the other things we do for systems, so I'm a system, I run the company, but I've got Andy over here who can run the company in my absence. Every manager here has a backup protege who does the work, so they could go on vacation, much less get run over by a truck. Cheryl, my accountant in here, rides Harleys. Okay, she's going for 2 weeks back to Colorado pretty soon. I said, I would hate anything to happen to you, but motorcycles can be dangerous. And if you die, I'll go to your funeral. But the mercenary part of me says, what do I do now? Because she's running 6 different companies and all this. And we were laughing about it. And the thing is, what happens if so-and-so gets run over by a truck? And it's kind of a laughing matter because of the analogy of it. But Robin in here, who's been training for a year, can run the company. And she can go for 2 weeks without having to be on the phone every 5 minutes. So systems. When you look at the world with a systems mindset, you understand that everything is a system, and you start dealing with it in that way, even with people who work for you. They are systems. And I run the risk of sounding like, an uncaring.
You're a robot. It's fine. No, I'm kidding.
And that's not at all. I come into the office, we just sit around and mock each other and have fun most of the time.
That's awesome.
But the truth is they all understand that. And to get back to kind of a thread that we had going here, it's very important that your people understand that it works. And the way they understand that it works is they implement it in their own department, whether it's sales or accounting or whatever, and they see the beauty of it and how it does work, and they will never go back to doing it the other way because this works so well. If you face reality, and reality is our lives are collections of systems. And so you work on the systems. You don't do the work.
I love this. I know. I have to start wrapping up. So I'm going to ask the last question. Besides getting the book, it is free. You can go to workthesystem.com. I got that in for you because everyone has no excuse not to get it. So besides that, what's one action listeners can take this week to help move them forward towards their goal of 1 million?
Right now, as they're listening, look around and see the separate systems. If you're listening to this on audio and you're driving down the street, look at the separate cars. There's a separate human in each car. Look at the tree. Look at that tree. They're all separate from each other. If you're in your living room or in your office, look around. You can go to the bathroom and turn the water on the sink. That has nothing to do with the power that's running the AC. Nothing. Zero. Zilch. Nada. Nothing. They're connected like your kidney is connected to your heart is connected to your knee. They're all connected, but they're isolated, separate systems. That's why if you fall off your bike and break your leg, you're not rushed immediately to a general practitioner. You run to a specialist that has to do with broken bones, an orthopedic guy. Everything is a separate system, and as soon as you can break your life down into those separate systems and see those on a moment-to-moment basis, like right now, our viewers can do that. There's a telephone over here. There's a phone here. There's this book. There's my sunglasses. They're all separate. And so are the elements of your business.
I love this. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you for saying yes after I tracked you down. Everybody, make sure you check out Work the System and have an amazing, amazing lunch with your wonderful wife. I appreciate you being here, Sam.
I kind of surprised her. She didn't know I was doing this morning, but we're going to go lunch.
Well, she made this show. What was that?
You're a delight. And thank you for being so knowledgeable about my book and asking the right questions.
Oh, I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed that interview. And if you want to check out more amazing resources, I'm only curating the best of the best. Go check out eventualmillionaire.com. You can take the Eventual Millionaire quiz, figure out where you are in business and what you need right now. Plus, you can look at curated resources specifically for you on the new Start Here page. I'm so excited. Please join us. Please let me know if you need anything at all. I'm here for you. And have a fantastic day. Bye.